From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast. This is episode 514. I am Andrew in our forum, Andrew NLSC on X. With me as always, my co-host Derek, DP3 in our forum, and DP3G and DP384 on X. Derek, we like to have fun with basketball video games, talk about the fun we're having, but we also want to cover the serious, important topics as well. And this week, there's something rather concerning to talk about.
Yeah, for NBA 2K24, terms of service update. Our legal terms are changing on February 28th, 2024. You must accept our new terms in order to play after February 28th, 2024. And it's an official announcement from 2K, and they have Jason Tatum holding a basketball as, kind of like a screenshot for the announcement. And that's kind of fitting because he wears number 0, and clearly 2K has zero respect for their consumers. So NBA 2K24 Intel, this is the first post on X that I saw about this, states, new terms of service update drops on February 28th for 2K that you must sign if you want to play the game. You can no longer take 2K to court if you agree on this. And the wording under Section 15, mandatory arbitration, states, this agreement contains a mandatory arbitration clause and a waiver of class action and jury trial rights for all users residing in the United States and any other territory other than Australia, you, Andrew, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, or the territories of the European Economic Area. For covered users, unless you opt out via the process in Section 15.5, and that opt-out, Andrew, is basically them forcing you to send a letter. So you can't click a link, you can't go online and do it. They're making it as tough as possible to opt out of this. You have to send a physical letter to an address that they give you. Anyway, I'll continue. So it says, you will be bound by the arbitration agreement, which means that you and Take-Two will be required to resolve any dispute, subject to limited exceptions, by final and binding individual arbitration. The arbitration clause waives your right to a jury trial and to participate in class action, collective actions, and all other types of court proceedings. You acknowledge that you understand, and unless you validly opt out, expressly agree to the mandatory arbitration clause and class action/jury trial waiver. Now, I want to point something out, Andrew. 2K knows exactly what they're doing with this. I think this is a direct result and reaction related to the lawsuit where somebody at the end of 2023, a parent and their child are taking 2K to court in relation to the microtransaction BS.
Definitely.
Right? We covered that topic on a previous show, but to basically summarize what that was about, a parent and their child filed a lawsuit against 2K and is taking them to court over the fact that they're not allowed to carry virtual currency that they paid for into the new game. So basically, they lose all of that virtual currency that they spent money on, right? And they don't get to bring any of that progress or anything like that over to the newest game. And also there were other aspects of that lawsuit related to the other microtransaction BS and, preying on consumers, etc. So this is reactionary. This is Take-Two doing whatever they possibly can to make it so they can't be taken to court, right? So they can say that somebody logged onto the video game, accepted the terms of service, and they can point to that and say, hey, you can't take us to court now. You can't sue us. You agreed to this terms of service. And you and I both know this, Andrew. They're counting on 99.9% of the people, even more than that, not reading this terms of service.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
They're not going to. In fact, their target audience is teenagers, right? And young adults. They know that these gamers are going to just fly through that terms of service, hit accept, and move on. They also know that if somebody does read the terms of service, either they won't want to go through the trouble to contest it and they'll just want to get through that to play the game, or if they read through it and then they get to the contest portion of it and they see that they have to physically mail in an opt-out, like draft up a letter, bring it to their mailbox, all of that stuff to opt out of this, they're not going to want to do that either. So basically, this is a way that they can combat these lawsuits and protect themselves and their predatory practices. It is a damn shame. And you and I talked about this before the show, and you said, it's wild that 2K went from being the darling of basketball video games, not only the darling of basketball video games, but kind of the darling of sports video games. Yeah. Right? And they went from that to this.
It's wild when we have a situation where people are saying, EA Sports, save us, both for the history of lack of quality in NBA Live for many years and disappointment with the series, and also just generally EA's approach to business is not necessarily consumer-friendly, not very friendly to other smaller studios as well. So the idea that EA Sports is almost becoming, maybe not the good guy, but certainly the anti-hero in this situation is absolutely crazy. And it is concerning. It's very obvious, as you said, that it's a reaction to these lawsuits, trying to get people intimidated, if nothing else, because there have been some people on X, on Reddit, and look, they are probably not lawyers. We are definitely not lawyers. But a lot of the stuff that's in this new terms of service doesn't seem like it would stand up to legal scrutiny. And I'd love to see DJ Stone of Legal Eagle, the legal YouTube channel, would love to see him take a shot at this and talk about it, because he is a lawyer. He is a successful lawyer and knows about these things. It'd be interesting to get an actual insight from an actual lawyer. But it does seem like it's not above board. If nothing else, it's certainly very scummy to do. And as much as people were pushing back on it on Reddit, we did see some people defending 2K or saying, it's not a big deal. But you look at the scope of things, they can also, without warning, without compensation, take away digital items. And that also includes, if you've paid for something fair and square, paid for that VC, bought the item, and then they just take it away for whatever reason, you're SOL. So it goes beyond.
They've actually done that before too. Remember?
Absolutely,
with the My Team cards and the abilities too, and stuff that you've bought to upgrade your player and stuff. Exactly. It's actually happened.
Yeah, I was going to say that the 2K19 Pink Diamond LeBron scandal, which I wrote about on Christmas Day, they rushed to remove that from everybody's accounts. They'll drag their feet to fix any other issues, but they got right on that right away. So they have removed that content before, that digital content, and to that point, updating the terms of service like this, like you say, updating it, making it very, it's not something that people read, and I guess it goes back to the point we should read updated terms of service or any terms of service to make sure that these things aren't being put in there, and we're not agreeing to, all and sundry. But the fact they're doing it so quietly like this, it's really on brand for Take-Two, because you see what they did with the Pink Diamond scandal with 2K19, the Pink Diamond LeBron issue. They didn't make an announcement. They just tried to take that out of everybody's account quietly, and it blew up in their face, rightfully so. But it's the sneakiness and the lack of transparency. We've talked about that as far as gameplay and things about the actual on-court experience. That's bad enough. But this is scummy on a whole other level.
I got to point something out. I agree that more than likely this wouldn't hold up in court. I think this is a scare tactic in a way, but also a deterrent, right?
But effective.
I think
it will be effective.
Right, exactly. I think it's something that they could also attempt to use early on in any complaints or proceedings in order to say, hey, you guys can't do anything about this. Don't waste your money, right? Don't waste your money trying to take us to court and coming after us. I also want to point out that I was looking at this opt-out option, which is later in the ToS. It says your right to opt out. I'm going to skip down a little lower. It says you must notify us in writing within 30 days of the date that you first accept this agreement, quote unquote opt out notice, unless a longer period is required by applicable law. Your opt-out notice must be sent to Take-Two Interactive Software, Inc., Attention Legal Department, Arbitration Opt-out, and it gives you the address in New York. And then it says, The opt-out notice must include your full name, your mailing address, your account name, if you have one, and a clear signed statement that you do not agree to the arbitration agreement. You are responsible for ensuring our receipt of your opt-out notice. But it reminds me of the server thing. You're required.
Yeah.
You are responsible for ensuring our
There
receipt.
was a problem with your letter.
Yeah, there's a problem with your letter. That's the next thing that's gonna happen. And it says you therefore may want to send your notice using a delivery method that provides you with a written receipt of delivery. This is just entirely scummy. Like this entire thing just reeks, in my opinion. They know that out of all of the gamers out there, all the people that have bought 2K, that there's going to be practically not one person to do an opt-out letter, right? They know that people are going to fly through that ToS screen, and then they're going to use it against him if they ever try to go after him. Here's the other thing that bothers me about this, Andrew. These people, kids, teenagers, young adults, older adults, etc., all purchased this game without this binding ToS, right?
Yeah.
But now they're being told if they don't accept this ToS for a game that they've already paid for, and some paid $60, $70, $100, or $150, depending on which version they got, or they've spent hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands, on VC. They're stating that you spent all of that money on this game, but we're going to roll this out, and if you don't accept it, you're not going to be able to play the game. Is that legal?
It doesn't,
like, I'm wondering,
doesn't seem like it should be. Yeah.
No, it doesn't seem like. How is that possible for them to cut off people's supply to the game? To cut off people's ability to play a game that they bought without this terms of service in there? Right.
I
and already put so much money in. It's like, it's really bothering me. Like I'm thinking about all the kids out there, right?
Sure.
And then parents who are being taken advantage of, and kids using their parents' credit cards for the game and then for virtual currency. And then all the young adults out there that are getting exploited and taken advantage of through the microtransaction BS and from the game in general. Like, I'm thinking about this and I'm like, how is it possible that they can say, if you don't accept this terms of service that we're releasing on February 28th, even though the game still has a bunch of months in its life before the new 2K comes out, how can you shut us down from playing it? Can't be legal, right?
It can't be. It certainly doesn't seem to be when you have bought that product under an existing EULA, you bought that under the existing agreement and terms of service. So, yeah, that is very, very shady, very suspicious. I'm wondering if it's just going to lock people out of the online content, because surely they can't lock you out of the offline content. Well, maybe they will. Maybe there'll be a patch that comes through that exits the game if you haven't agreed to these terms of service. You can't even use the offline content. Now, that would be even worse. I mean, it's bad enough, but at least you would say, okay, it's locking you out of the online scene where all the microtransactions are. But if it prevents you from playing the game entirely offline as well, then it's really, truly gone to an even more ridiculous level. And I think it's particularly damning that it doesn't apply to certain areas, like Australia, like the European Economic Area, as you said. And you know what those areas all have in common, Derek? It's very strict and protective consumer protection laws. The consumer protection laws in Australia, look, we have issues in our country. I will not deny that. We have terrible internet. But what we do have is really good consumer protection laws. And I believe that's one of the reasons why Steam had to change their refund policy. Of course, they get us going the other way by pushing up the price of digital releases because, it costs so much to send it across under the tubes of the ocean to Australia, just like posting a physical copy. But we do have those consumer protection laws. A lot of European countries do as well. And obviously, it's not going to fly with those laws. And yeah, doesn't that say it all?
They are going to shut up or attempt to shut up as many people as they possibly can in Australia and the other areas you mentioned. They're not going to be able to do that, right? So they have to pick and choose, but they're going to try to get as many people as possible, right? And I think that this is going to be pretty successful in some ways, and that bothers me. I also want to point something out. You mentioned EA Sports is looking a little bit better. And while you're not seeing the lawsuits fly, or at least you're not seeing articles related to these lawsuits flying against EA Sports, let's not forget what they're doing with NBA Live Mobile.
Oh, yeah.
Which is one of the biggest cash grabs BS things I've ever seen. I told you I installed that game just to take a look at it, and I was immediately hit with all of these screens stating, buy this virtual currency in order to do this, to do that. The entire NBA Live Mobile game, for the most part, is hidden behind paywall.
And it's not good gameplay either, really.
Right. It's filled with gambling mechanics. It's constant reminders of, hey, you have to spend this money to do this. You have to spend this money to upgrade. You have to do all that. So, and then look what they're doing with Madden Ultimate Team, etc.
They're not saints. It's kind of...
Right.
I mean, to clarify, it's not that they are the good guys here. It's kind of like they've somehow become looking like the lesser of two evils because 2K has developed such a monopoly in the basketball gaming space and are doing this that we have no choice when it comes to new games, that people are, funnily enough, looking to a company that certainly doesn't have a better reputation overall as come and save us, EA, which is just unthinkable.
Yeah. Something else that bothered me, and I brought this up to you before we started recording, is have you seen any 2K influencers or Take-Two influencers come forward stating, hey, like this ToS looks like, it's BS, right? Or, no, I don't agree with this.
None of the content creators are working with 2K.
They refuse to talk about it. They refuse to talk about it. And that's the whole thing about controlling the influence, right? They're just going to keep making their build videos and their gameplay videos like, good little influencers for the company, and that's exactly what the company wants.
Get the bag,
right?
Yeah. That's how it is, yeah. And
exactly.
It goes to the media as well. It goes to the media that we don't know there are people that often work with 2K, people who are writers for publications, etc., content creators beyond your standard YouTubers, also people in the media, and the same people, and we won't name names here, but I'm sure people can figure out who we're talking about, will. That they take shots at EA for years, rightfully so in some cases, but you could definitely see their bias towards 2K. And as 2K continued to get pushier and pushier with microtransactions, they just kept getting more and more apologetic for it. And now a situation like this breaks, and they are completely silent. And it's a damn shame, and it's embarrassing how biased people are about this, how they're not calling out these bad practices, and it leads to people on Reddit, for example, our fellow gamers standing with $1 billion corporation over their fellow gamers. It's ridiculous.
And like I stated on the Discord, I am not going to be playing NBA 2K24 again. I'm not going to accept this term of service. It's complete BS. And I'm going to stand by my word there. And about people, highlighting this stuff, people from the media. That's why we had so much respect for Stephen Totillo from Axios Gaming. And I believe he's actually moved on from Axios and is doing his own thing. And that's excellent for him.
Independent now,
but he's for years he's been speaking up about this microtransaction BS and, the predatory mechanics in the 2K games and, how they are being unfair to the consumer and whatnot. And he was the one who also was highlighting the lawsuit. He wrote an article on that. And in the article, it states, just for a refresher for people, because I think this is important, because I think this is what really kickstarted them working on this new terms of service. It states, game publisher Take-Two Interactive is being accused of theft in a new class action complaint over microtransactions in NBA 2K and the rest of the company's popular sports games. And it says the suit was filed in federal court in California on November 17th by a minor, J.A., who was represented by their mother. It focuses on Take-Two's sale of virtual currency to buy in-game items in NBA 2K and the inability to transfer that currency to newer versions of the game. It also states the suit alleges that Take-Two's approach is unfair, illegal, and greedy, especially when coupled with the claim that it deactivates the servers for its older annual sports games relatively rapidly after new editions are released. And we've talked about this before. It's under 3 years now for them to deactivate those servers, Andrew.
Yeah.
Once the servers of a game are turned off, leftover virtual currency is inaccessible. And that's money that that virtual currency was bought with money that, people put into the game, their own hard-earned money. So then it says, the suit accuses Take-Two of unfair business practices and violating California's civil theft statutes, stating in part, by removing plaintiff and the class members, VC, defendants took and stole their personal property or fraudulently appropriated property that had been entrusted to defendant. And I couldn't agree more, Andrew.
Yeah. No, this is exactly what they're talking about, that they're changing the terms of service to say that they do have the rights to take away your digital items, that you don't have ownership over them. And is this why physical media is so important? And that's another discussion altogether. But this is something that the new agreement is saying, that they can take that stuff away. And if you have put hundreds, thousands into the game, and this is where somebody comes along and victim blames and says, well, you shouldn't be spending so much on a video game. And I mean, I do agree that is bad and you shouldn't be, but the game has mechanics that take advantage of impulse control, gambling addictions, etc. They're definitely pushing those mechanics, so they are trying to get that recurrent revenue. And the point is that you have paid for those items, and they do disappear after, 27 months is how long they offer online support. Yes, they do put that up front in the agreement, but it's still a relatively short amount of time. And a few years ago, Derek, I actually wrote an article about this. They were still selling 2K18, the Legend Edition of 2K18, after the servers went down. And the Legend Edition of 2K18, as you know, the only reason to pay extra for that Legend Edition are the online items, the VC, the My Team cards, those bonuses, those digital bonuses that are no longer available once the servers went down. They were still selling that premium edition of the game after the servers went down. Now, these days, they are pulling the game out of the online stores when they are shutting down the servers. They're being a bit more vigilant about that. You may remember that 2K17 was still up for, I think, over a year or two after the servers were shut down. But, yeah, so these kinds of shady business practices, they've just been going on for a long time, and they're really coming to a head with this.
And just because of that situation, just the NBA 2K18 situation, even if it was just that, they should face a huge fine.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They should face a huge fine just for that. And, Hookup Guy shared an article from May 7th, 2022. And you and I have talked about how the Take-Two CEO's bonus directly is tied to microtransactions, right? They make an enormous amount of money off of these microtransactions. In fact, the company makes far more off of microtransactions than they do the sale of the game itself. So that is a huge red flag. But this article from 2022 also reports that this isn't the first time somebody took Take-Two to court, and it was actually highlighted in an article. So this was thegamer.com. That's where the article comes from. And it was written by Vaspan Dastor. And at the bottom of this article, and the article is titled, Take-Two CEO's bonus directly tied to microtransactions. And it states, earlier in March, so in 2022, Take-Two was sued by a minor and their guardian over the loot boxes being sold in the NBA 2K series. The lawsuit was filed in Winnebago County Circuit Court in January and then moved to Illinois' Northern District Court. The complaint stated that the defendants' unfair, deceptive, and unlawful practices, including illegal gambling practices, deceive, mislead, and harm consumers, and was seeking $5 million in damages. There is nothing inaccurate about that statement. That is everything that is wrong with these microtransaction practices that are in these 2K games, especially since 2K18. So let's not act like these gambling issues are just now being highlighted. Like these lawsuits are now just coming forward. There's a history with this, like a recent history with it.
Oh, people have been talking about the issues with VC and microtransactions for years, but the game was good, so people kind of put up with it. It wasn't as pushy, so people said, oh, well, it's optional. And people still say it's optional. And I'll always push back on that, Derek, because it is technically optional, but feasibly, people are either going to grind or pay. Work hard just to have fun, or pay extra to make the game enjoyable. And it's just gotten worse and worse over the years. And you see these comments from people defending it and saying, well, look, it's the servers are going to be shut down, everybody moves on, and you don't have the rights to these digital items and everything else. Again, supporting the billion-dollar corporation over their fellow gamers, over consumer rights, is just not looking at the big picture, and then being able to take away these digital items and being able to just ban people and from using these items or ban their account without any kind of a way to appeal a ban properly. We've seen a lot of people banned for no reason, or they're banned for like 2,000 years or something for quitting an online game. And there's no standard procedure for getting your account unbanned. You contact 2K support, maybe they help you, maybe they don't. They probably don't, because 2K support, in my experience with them, I can't blame the people who are there working support. They can only do what the company has told them to do, but to that point, the company has given them no way to actually be helpful. It's just poor service all around. And I say that as someone who's worked technical support for an internet service provider before. I shouldn't be surprised, Derek, but I just don't get why people are defending this and they're not looking at the big picture. I know we say that a lot, but it just goes to show how people fail to see the big picture over and over again.
I gotta point something out, though. The large majority of comments on the NBA 2K24 Intel post, on any of the other posts that have been highlighting this new ToS BS, the large majority of people are not defending it.
Fair.
In fact, they're saying this is what 2K deserves. This is what they get. This is what happens when you make a crap game. This is what happens when, you take advantage of people for this length of time, all of that. So let's focus on that. The good thing is that the large majority of people, when they see these things highlighted, when they see that people are being taken advantage of and a company is being unfair, they do not agree to it.
That's
or they
true.
do not
That's
stand
fair,
up
yeah.
for it. I think my biggest issue with this entire thing is the big influencers, and like you stated, media, etc., that are out there that could speak up and really get people's eyes on this, right? And really get people talking and really impact change. They stay silent, right? Because they don't want to lose their perks, right? If they're part of a 2K program, like a influencer program, they don't want to lose their access to those perks and to that program, right? If they work for 2K, of course they're not going to speak up, right? Even if they disagree with these practices, even if they think the ToS is BS, even if they think microtransactions shouldn't even exist in the game, they're not going to speak up and say that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And there's people also who are influencers for 2K, even if quote unquote they're not, like a part of like the Next Maker program or anything like that, but they promote 2K. People with hundreds of thousands of followers and millions of impressions on their content, who again will just not speak up on this because they don't want to lose that audience. They don't want to lose that access. They don't want to lose anything in relation to perks. So I think that, also a lot of these channels, like YouTube channels, or if they're promoting the game on another social media platform that monetizes, they don't want to lose the income, Andrew. Right?
No.
That they're generating, and the clout that they get and all of that. So I think that part bothers me, the most. I also want to point out that one of the responses to my question in relation to this, because I said to the community, I said, what are your thoughts on this? If you don't accept this new ToS, you won't be able to play NBA 2K24. And I showed the, part of the ToS that I read earlier and whatnot. And, Hookup Guy says, WTF is going on at 2K?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? And I think that's what a lot of people are thinking. They're like, what the hell have they gotten themselves into? And what the hell happened to a company that used to be the darling in this space?
Well, they found a way to make even more money out of gamers, obviously. And you are right. It's more the vocal minority, the people who want to be contrarians, and, of course, as you say, the content creators who don't want to rock the boat, who don't want to lose their access journalism, their perks, etc. So that's a fair point. A lot of people are, maybe a majority of gamers are, you could say, that are seeing this news are responding as we are. And to that point, the developers, the people actually working on the game itself, I don't blame them. This is a suits. This is a legal department issue. They're not worried about this kind of stuff. They're worrying about, okay, how do we code this? How do we develop these ideas that we are having? It's not the people working on the game directly. It is the legal department. It is the suits that are trying to shut this down. So this is why we're talking about Take-Two, the company, rather than the developers. But this is a publisher issue more than a developer issue, if you will.
Yeah, well, to the developers, your gameplay has also gone sideways.
I mean, that too.
That is fun. And, fix your suction issues, fix your canned animation issue, fix your skating issue, your poor foot planning and the BS shooting mechanics and all that stuff. You guys could improve as well, because the games, the games aren't even as fun as they used to be.
That makes it very easy to put them down, right? I mean, if I don't ever play 2K24 again, I'm fine with that because, I don't really want to play the game, so that's
right. I'm fine. Like, by the way, I'm completely fine with not playing the game. For the rest of but this cycle, I have no interest in putting it on. So.
It kind of makes you nostalgic for the bad games of the past, or the flawed games of the past, where the only issue was, fix the game, or we're not happy with the gameplay, and now it's coming down to, and we're not happy with the gameplay in a game that's also trying to suck more money out of us from a company that is trying to shut down criticism, shut down lawsuits from people who have a valid complaint about shady business practices. Like, we've gone beyond just simply being disappointed with the on-court experience, the gameplay experience, to look what this company is trying to do to us.
Yeah, I think that there's frustration with the microtransactions. There's frustration with the online scene, the way it's constructed, the way it's oftentimes favoring, the elitists with their bought for builds and their artificial boosts, and just it kind of favors those toxic attitudes. And then people are also frustrated with the gameplay, right? So like, it's the perfect storm, like I've stated in the past, of suck. Like this NBA 2K24 is overall the perfect storm of suck. We had the Live King respond to my post and state, I think I am done with 2K.
Yeah.
And that's saying something if he's saying that, because he's been dabbling with NBA 2K24, not just on, his Xbox Series console, but also, NBA 2K24 for the PC. So I think it's telling that he would say that.
Oh, for sure. And look, I don't blame anybody who does decide, look, I'm enjoying the game, or I want to enjoy this game that I purchased, I will go ahead with this, and I'll try to make the best of it. Because we are gamers, we love basketball, we love basketball gaming. People are going to try to make the best they can of the situation. When the choice is accept the terms of service or don't play the game, then if you want to play the game, your hand has been forced. But to that point, if you really do feel strongly about it, then the option is there to boycott. Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, ME-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at nba-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community. And look, not to go off on too much of a tangent here, Derek, but this is why we advocate for retro basketball gaming, is it not? That we have, and when I say retro, I'm also talking, that's a relative term, because even you could say that 2K14, 2K15, games that are 9-10 years old are retro to some. A generation ago, they might be retro in a sense. We're not just talking about.
They were certainly more fair to the gamer, Andrew.
Oh, they certainly
that's
are.
The
absolutely,
thing is you go back to 2K17, 16, 15, 14, and 13. While yes, there was an online presence and a career mode and whatnot, those games were overall fair
And you can still play all the modes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, not the online modes, the ones that are completely online. But yeah.
Right.
But the point is that if you do need to get your basketball gaming fix, there are games that hold up really well. So you can say to 2K, if this is the direction you're going in, if this is what you can do with 2K24, then yes, I will put it aside and I will get my fix somewhere else. And we're not going to be beholden to you having the only new game available. We've got older games that still hold up. We've got modding that adds new current rosters to old games and makes it seem like it was original content. So we talk about voting with your wallet, voting with your habits. And if you do feel that strongly, then by all means boycott it. Boycotts in gaming don't necessarily work out as well as hoped because people do end up going back to the game. But it's going to be interesting, Derek. This time, maybe not. I think this might be the final straw for a lot of people.
It might be. We will see. Again, remember, they're the only basketball sim in the space, Andrew. They're the only 5-on-5 sim in the space, and people want their basketball fixed.
That's right.
So I still have my doubts. You talk about retro gaming, though, and just classic basketball gaming in general. Lagoa, who has been such a big part of the NLSC community over the years, he created some of the best global mods for NBA 2K14. In fact, I still use them. Ones that enhance the sweat on the players, enhance the look of the textures and the court and all of that. His comment on this was, wow, what 2K has become, a dirty company that only thinks about microtransactions and how to escape possible lawsuits instead of taking care of the details of the game. So this is somebody who has loved 2K in the past, right? Who loved modding 2K, who loved playing 2K and everything. That's why we're saying this isn't a 2K thing. This isn't a 2K basketball thing, right? Because we've loved so many of the 2Ks from the past when they were fair to the game, or when they were producing great quality, on the virtual hardwood from a gameplay perspective and whatnot. But yeah, people like Lagoa and the Live King, people who have enjoyed the games from the past so much, they're fed up.
And rightfully so. It has come to this point where it has been so pushy, first with the microtransactions, and also now we've got season passes. I mean, way back in September 2022, episode 445 of the NLSC podcast, Derek, we posed the question, title of the episode, is NBA 2K23 the grittiest 2K ever? And we thought it had a pretty good argument for being the grittiest ever, but 2K24 has surpassed it.
Yeah, I also want to point something out. It can't be lost, the amount of greed that is in the My Team mode.
Yes.
We haven't really talked much about My Team on this episode, but we've talked about it on prior episodes. The ridiculous amount of duplicates that you get. Now Take-Two controls the market, too, so you can't even get players oftentimes at a fair price. The gameplay is super frustrating in that mode because you can't make any slider tweaks, and even a lot of the slider tweaks in NBA 2K24 feel like a placebo anyway, right? Like, I've messed with them and I feel like it's making no changes to the gameplay. Yeah. So the My Team pack odds, how they're constantly shoving down people's throats, graphics related to, hey, buy this pack, get your hands on this pack, spend this much VC to get this player, and all of this stuff, how they're trying to keep people constantly on that mode so they spend more money and everything. Let's not discount the greed that's in My Team. And yeah, they took the greed to another level, and the unfairness to the consumer to another level. In 2K24 over 2K23, they added the season pass BS, right? The multiple charges if you want to get the season passes. They, like I stated, in My Team, they took control of the market, of the auction house, of the player market, etc. So yeah, they took it to another level. Moving to the Discord, Juicy Shack Meat stated, clearly Take-Two Interactive was and is threatened by that lawsuit.
Absolutely.
From last year. I think that's what kickstarted this.
It absolutely is. I mean, we said at the time there had been those previous lawsuits. They were settled in a... What's the language? The result was sealed?
Yes. So basically those court documents were sealed. Like the result of that
public,
lawsuit is not going to be public. So we'll never see what happened with that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So they're doing it very quietly. Again, telegraphing what they're doing here. And And people say, look, this is just how other games work, and it is endemic of the gaming industry these days, obviously. But 2K being an annual full-priced release, it's different to other MMORPGs where you can play them for years. You're not losing that progress. You're not starting over each and every year. The open world concept. People say, "Oh, you wanted an open world concept." Not necessarily like this. And I hate that argument, Derek, that people say, "Oh, you asked for this." And people may ask for ideas, but they also want them implemented well. They want them implemented fairly. So the open world of my career, the city and the neighborhood, is not open world done right, not done in a fun way. So people said, "Oh, an open world concept would be kind of cool," but the way they've done it is not good, and it's certainly just added to the predatory mechanics of the game. So I hate when people say, "Oh, you asked for this." So we asked for it, but you've given us a bad version of it. It's like it's saying, "Oh, could you make me a sandwich?" And somebody hands you a sandwich that's full of crayons, and you're like, "Well, I didn't want this." "Oh, you asked for a sandwich." Yes, an edible sandwich, not one filled with crayons.
Yeah, the thing is fairness and quality mean everything.
Yes,
right.
That's the difference.
And people wanted NBA Live 07 to be released, right, for the 360. They wanted that another basketball sim in the space. They wanted Live to be great. But what happened with NBA Live 07? The quality was terrible. So just because people wanted that sim, another 5-on-5 sim in the space, and they wanted Live to continue and whatnot, that doesn't make NBA Live 07 not critiquable. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
It deserves its criticism. It deserves to be critiqued. Gamers deserved better, and they should speak up about that. That game, people spent their money on that game, and the quality of that game wasn't fair to the game, right?
Yeah.
It was absolutely terrible. It was a piss poor effort.
And
let's put it that way.
That's the issue with 2K, is that it is mixing so many concepts these days beyond a basketball game to the point that it is recurrent revenue driven. That is undeniable at this point. And just the way that it comes out as an annual sim, these mechanics would be controversial anyway, and season passes and everything. But for a game that comes out every year, multiple seasons, etc., and all, just the pushiness has just gone so far. Pep, I'm just looking at the Discord now. Pep says, "Unfreaking believable. I hope gamers will finally wake up and start to boycott 2K. I'm definitely not going to buy 2K25 or participate in March Madness to win it." And Pep has won March Madness, the March Madness giveaway a couple of years, including 2K24, actually. So that's the point. Pep doesn't even want a free copy, and I don't blame him.
And Pep loves the classics too, right? He's never been against 2K. He's always been
great
against
work for
unfair
2K14.
practices.
Great modding.
But yeah, his work is legendary.
Yeah.
In the modding community, and on the NLSC in general. He's made so many great jerseys and so many great mods, and he's highly respected. And his reaction to this is not surprising in the least. And then his next comment on the Discord is, like Jim Ross said, enough is enough.
Yeah.
I think he's also fed up. And then, Juicy Shack Meat followed up on his comment. He stated, "I haven't played since October. Glad that I was able to figure out how to run Wine on my wife's 2014 MacBook Air, whatever that is. I'm not sure at this point. So I think
that's like a compatibility for PC games on Mac, I believe.
Oh, okay, there you go. So he said, so I got to play the old classics so far. And then he said, by the way, I'm not a lawyer, but I checked the old ToS as of last January 4th. This was the old litigation section, and it looks just entirely different.
Yeah.
Than what they're putting out here in the February 28th ToS. But I'll say again, it is nice to see that most people are pushing back on this.
And that's a good point, because, as I said, I was focusing a bit on the people who were defending it, and it's that vocal minority that stands out with their ill-informed, shilling opinions. But as you say, it is disappointing that the people with influence are not standing up and saying, you know what, I will put my access on the line to stand up for gaming. It's clear that it's about clout. It's about money for them too, and it's disappointing. I know everyone's got to eat, get that bag, whatever. But when you're throwing your fellow gamers under the bus, it's bad enough when people dismiss legitimate gameplay criticisms and mode criticisms and feature criticisms, when they just dismiss them out of hand as whining, even when they're very well stated and absolutely true and backed up by people showing, I'm not just saying it sucks to say it sucked, but when they're actually doing it for these issues as well, shilling for the bad practices, the recurrent revenue, and even the shady stuff with the new terms of service, yeah, I just don't respect that at all.
Again, I'm wondering, Andrew, is this even legal? That, like, the terms of service.
Well, someone's going to find it.
You can't play the game. Well, that's what I was about to say. Is, wouldn't it be ironic if somebody sued them because of the terms of service, right? Like, wouldn't it be funny if somebody out there was like, "Wait a minute, you're telling me you're going to shut down my access to this game if I don't accept this bullying tactic?" That's not going to fly. And so they sue Take-Two. So like I said, I don't even like, this just seems kind of threatening to me.
It definitely does.
It doesn't feel legal.
They are, as we said at the top of the show, hoping that people feel intimidated by it and say, "Oh, this is some threatening legalese, so we better do what they say." I would love to hear input from somebody like DJ Stone of Legal Eagle, somebody who is a lawyer, somebody who does know about these things. It'd be very interesting to get their perspective on this, because, again, we are not lawyers, nor do we play them on TV or even a YouTube channel. And again, DJ Stone is actually a lawyer, practicing lawyer, but it doesn't really pass the smell test to us.
Consumers shouldn't have to turn on a game and immediately worry about unfair business practices, right? They shouldn't have to worry about putting extra money into the game consistently over the top of what they already purchased the game for, right? They shouldn't be pummeled with gambling mechanics in my team. They shouldn't be pummeled with VC reminders and gambling mechanics, to upgrade their player or to get certain outfits and all of that stuff. In my opinion, all of this stuff just reeks. It stinks and it is incredibly anti-consumer, and people deserve better. I've said it before, our youth deserves better. We've talked about this before. The target audience is our youth for this game, Andrew. You can see it by the outfits that they're promoting, the sponsors for the game. You can see it in relation to the marketing of the game. They are absolutely, like, youth and young adults are the primary target, right? And just they're getting taken advantage of, and it honestly pisses me off.
And we have been building to this point. There's the old saying about frogs and boiling water, and it has actually been scientifically disproven. Frogs will jump out of the boiling water when they feel it getting hotter, but the metaphor still stands that so many people just stay there as the heat gets turned up and up. And yeah, now we're realizing just how hot the water is.
Yeah, what was your gut reaction to the new ToS news?
I mean, I was immediately concerned. Obviously, it's like, what else are they going to do? What else are they going to put in there? And you talk about the slippery slope fallacy. Yes, it is fallacious, but certainly there are also people who, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And I certainly believe corporations, multi-billionaire corporations, will do just that. When I heard that it wasn't going to be applicable in Australia and other regions, it just immediately said to me, they can't do this in any area where there is particularly strong consumer protection laws. So, again, that just speaks volumes, that they know they can't do it in these areas the same way that they can't have microtransactions, they can't sell VC in certain regions as well. Speaks volumes.
Yeah, like I said, shutting up as many people as they possibly can, though.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I also wanted to read this reaction to my post on X, and I know this one is going to ruffle your feathers. And this is from Breeze on that platform. He states, "I'm honestly surprised by how surprised everyone is by this. We've all signed plenty of ToS agreements without reading. They all have funny language in them. People getting too worked up over this. If you're worried about having to join a class action, just don't play the game."
Yeah.
So Andrew, this is one of your big pet peeves.
That is victim blaming 101.
I know you're mad about this. That is one of your biggest pet peeves, is the, if you want to instead of complaining about it, just don't play the game. Like, what?
What happened to standing up for other people? Whatever, standing up to, bad practices? Absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, certainly, yes, we can choose not to play the game. That is a wise choice, and do not accept the terms of agreement if you do not agree to them. I mean, if that underlying point
Oh,
okay.
but I'm going to speak up. Well, first off, yeah, I'm not going to play the game. But
Exactly,
damn well I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to stand up for my fellow consumer, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to stand up for my fellow person, my fellow human being. I am going to critique, criticize, and, we've talked about this before on many NLSC shows, offer better ways to do it where it's more fair to the consumer. And no, you don't just let these companies get away with it. You don't just put the game down and say, oh, I've washed my hands with it, just time to move on with life. You speak up. And nobody, was surprised by this. I didn't see one comment that said they were surprised by this. So his first statement there, I'm honestly surprised by how surprised everyone is by this, just doesn't even make any sense. If you look at the comments under NBA 2K24 Intel's post, and you look at any other post on X highlighting this, pretty much every single person is saying this is not surprising, right? This is, they're worried about the lawsuit that was filed against them because, a lot of people are actually aware of that. And this is what you get for, taking advantage of consumers for all these years. And, what is this BS? This is just them being, once again, more unfair to the gamer. So, it's not about being surprised by it.
It reminds me of people who say, oh, VC has been in the game for years and only now you complain. Well, no, there were complaints from the very beginning. There were concerns from the very beginning. And a lot of people were shut down. Oh, it's just cosmetic. Oh, it's just a few bucks here and there. It doesn't matter. People were pointing this out from the start. But the point is that you could even argue that at the start, the buying VC was more optional, that it was a fairer grind, a more enjoyable journey without VC. It's gotten worse. And as it's gotten worse, people are saying, hey, it's getting worse. They're pointing out the situation getting more serious, getting more dire. So it's just some of that more apologist rhetoric, that pseudo-intellectual apologist rhetoric is the kindest thing I can say about that BS comment.
Also, making all ToSs equal is what his statement was. It's saying all ToSs have language, right? Like this. No, that is not true.
They're not doing this. Yeah,
exactly. First off, this terms of service looks like a bullying tactic, right? And a deterrent, and in a way almost like a threat, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can also point to a recent event where the company who put out this ToS is facing a lawsuit.
Exactly.
You can point directly to a recent event.
Cause and effect, yeah.
Cause and effect, exactly. Which prompted them to put this ToS out there. And you can even go back to 2022, that event that I mentioned earlier and whatnot, that other lawsuit. So, about loot boxes and unfair practices. So, no, not all ToSs are equal. Well, and by the way,
even if they were, it's like everyone's doing it. Would that make it okay? No.
Right. It doesn't change the material. Right. Yeah. So, the other piece of this too is, yes, people, by all means, put down the game and don't play it. If you are frustrated by the mechanics, if you're frustrated by that, if you don't agree with the ToS, all of that stuff, if the gambling mechanics have finally made you say, hey, I'm fed up, but promise me that you're not going to stop speaking up, and promise me that you're not going to stop standing up for your fellow gamer.
One of my least favorite aspects of modern online discourse is, and it's not just online, but it's where we see it, obviously, because we are connected and on social media and Reddit and other platforms, that not my problem, therefore not a real problem. And my complaints are righteous. Yours are complaining and whining. And no, this is such a selfish, myopic point of view. This is a situation people are rightfully standing up against and criticizing, and you're trying to shut it down by saying they're whining, or this is just the way it's always been. Shut up and take your medicine. Nah, get out of here with that.
Yeah, the whole "this is the way it's always been" is also usually a lie. Right? Even if it was the way it had always been, that doesn't make it right.
I mean, not to draw too many comparisons, but there's been a lot of things in society that we've done that have been because we've done them because it's always been the way we've done it, and that alone is not a good reason to continue it. I mean, what's that saying? Traditions are peer pressure from dead people. So the fact that we've always done it that way doesn't mean that it's necessarily good or right.
Bingo.
So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, this is an industry trend, right?
Of course.
Like, Take-Two is not the only company that's pulling the microtransaction BS. I mean, there's indie titles out there like mobile games, and we've talked about them like basketball managers that are
asset
like
flips, yeah, absolutely.
Doing everything they possibly can to reach into our consumers' pockets, right? And doing everything they possibly can to get every last penny from a consumer via microtransactions, even if the game is listed as free to play from the start, or the game is only $5, $6, $7. The goal of that company is to make you shell out far more by, putting predatory mechanics into the video game that require you to spend more or put pressure on you to spend more. So gaming is not in a great place right now, in my opinion, especially sports gaming. I think sports gaming is in the worst place it's ever been.
Yeah, no competition.
Right now.
All these pushy microtransactions, everything else. Yeah, I agree. We should be in a golden age with powerful technology, that we have consoles that can be, not to get into the whole debate, but they can be equivalent to a gaming PC, not a top-end gaming PC, I know this, but, you have these powerful consoles with quick loading times. You have these great gaming PCs. We're in an era where we should have these fantastic graphics and creative mechanics and really cool games and content that we can just, even live service content, when done well, can be a really fun idea. You go back to a game like NBA 07, NBA 08 by Sony. Look what they were doing with their challenge modes, where when there was some kind of historical performance, some kind of great game during the season for NBA 07 and NBA 08, that will get pushed through as a new challenge. Things like big moments in NBA Live 14. Big moments were a really cool idea. You can do stuff with live service content that is not a money grab, that is enhancing the gaming experience, adding new content to the game, new challenges, fresh things to play each and every day or every week or whatever. But it's just gone down this very predatory route of just pushing recurrent revenue mechanics, etc. And people have been pointing this out for a long time. People didn't want to hear it. Stop complaining when these complaints, and even the word complaints has too much of a negative connotation, Derek. But yeah, I just... Nah, that rolls me up. You can hear it in my voice. That rolls me up.
Yeah, I also want to point something out too, and I thought this was well said on Reddit. There was one Reddit thread where there were quite a few, what this guy calls industry plants, kind of standing up for this ToS and these practices. And the OP of the thread said, "Holy moly, there are a lot of industry plants here telling people to just sign their rights away. Nasty work." And he goes on to say, "Listen, 2K wouldn't do this unless they knew some legal heat was coming in the form of a class action lawsuit." Now, remember, we talked about these lawsuits, Andrew, but this could become much bigger. And that's what Take-Two is trying to avoid. And then he continues and he says, "You don't just wake up and threaten your fan base for something frivolous. 2K is all but signaling they are afraid of the consequences of people taking them to court for their industry-leading predatory practices." And I couldn't have said it any better. And he took it as a threat as well, right? Yeah. Like I did. It's very threatening. I also want to point something out, and I sent you a post on X, and you and I were pretty much in agreement on this. And this post was from @iMasonKOG. He states, "Funny how all the 2K devs come out of hiding from July till November, then go right back to ignoring the community. Aside from LD, so LD2K, and that's not even his job anymore." And I do want to make a point, and you echoed this when we were talking. The only communication related to the game that I feel we see from devs on social media, or at least the majority of the communications, are pushing back on the community saying, "Well, you guys just don't know how much work it takes to make a game." Yeah. Or "You guys don't know how much, the intricacies of, development work."
Which they never explain.
Different words of that, which they obviously don't explain. But the way that those posts are, in a way, trying to silence valid criticism. Yeah. Right? Like, I can't go into a development program and create a video game and, create perfect foot planting. But I can tell you that the foot planting stinks, and it's impacting my experience as a consumer, and that it's far worse than prior games, and that it's unrealistic, and that it should be looked at as an important fix. right?
It's
like
the whole,
I can go into a program like Unreal Engine, Andrew, and create a video game, like a basketball video game with minimal suction, etc. But I can tell you that the suction and being sucked into players on offense and defense all over the court, and when you drive to the basket and from the opposite block and all of that stuff, I can tell you that that is bad for the on-court experience. It's poor mechanics. It's not realistic for a basketball sim to have that in it. And it really hurts. Like I said, it just hurts the gameplay experience, the feel and control. So, no, I can't tell you how to go into an editing program and fix this. But my job as a consumer is to tell you if my experience with that product is being negatively impacted, right? And if I feel like it's a fix that would benefit the larger consumer base. And that's what the critiques and criticisms are often about, right? It's speaking up about those bad mechanics, right? Or those poor mechanics or things that could use improvement. So it is unfortunate that that's the way it works in, both of our opinions in relation to, the devs on social media.
Absolutely. And again, they don't have anything to do with this legal situation, but there is that issue, this arrogance to 2K and Take-Two Visual Concepts as a whole with that stuff. And look, Derek, you have never produced a movie, to my knowledge, or written a book, or created a video game. But that doesn't mean when you play a game, when you watch a TV show or a movie, that you can't critique them, that you don't know anything about what you're experiencing. I have never written a play that people are still talking about 400 years later. But as a high school student, I was still asked and tasked to analyze Shakespeare, his plays, and discuss them and the themes and analyze them. So, the idea that you must have to do something, if that's the case, then all critics have no valid opinions. And some people might say that's true, but no, you don't have to have done something. It's the whole thing with basketball as well. Oh, you've never played in the NBA. Oh, Paul Pierce wasn't as good as LeBron James. He can't comment on LeBron James. Well, why are Ryan Hollins and Kendrick Perkins talking about anybody in the history of basketball then? It's funny how people don't bring that up. But it's the idea that you can't criticize unless you can do it as well. It's, again, to use another basketball analogy, a lot of the best coaches weren't the best players, but they had a great mind for the game. Maybe the skill and the athleticism weren't there, but they knew how to teach, and they knew how to call plays and recognize plays and guide a team and manage personalities. Just because they weren't the best players didn't mean they didn't know their stuff about basketball.
You know what makes companies better? Listening to consumers.
Yeah.
That
go figure
is what makes companies better. It's surveys that go out. It's listening to people's feedback on various social media platforms, listening to what the majority of gamers want, listening to the critiques and criticisms they make in order to, improve the product, all of that. Our voice needs to matter. So stop shutting that out.
Absolutely. Well said. So, yeah, a concerning situation. Obviously, we will continue to keep an eye on the situation. If there are any new developments, we will obviously talk about it further. But I think we've said our piece, Derek. I think I stand by what we've said here, that this is shady. It is scummy. It's not the way to treat consumers. It's been building up for so long now. It's come to a head, and yeah, I am glad to see that there are people who agree with us and will not take this lying down. There are some people who are shilling, and that's always going to be the case, but hopefully the shills will be downvoted on Reddit, drowned out in the conversation, because this is not just whining or complaining. This is recognizing a serious issue and taking issue with it.
Bottom line, you deserve better, and speak up. That's what I would like to see is, you recognizing that you do deserve better, that these mechanics do not have to be in these games, and that it's a big company taking advantage of you. And at the same time, don't be silenced. Speak up, speak your mind, speak against these practices. If somebody talks to you about these practices, stand your ground and state, why they frustrate you and why they're wrong and everything. So, yeah, I hope that more and more people get involved in this conversation.
Absolutely, and we will continue to speak up on these and other issues regarding basketball gaming. With that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. As always, we thank you for tuning in and invite you to join us again next week, either on the NLSC, our YouTube channel, or your podcast app of choice. We also invite you to connect with us on social media. So, Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
Yeah, you can reach me on X at D43G and at D4384. I'm also on YouTube, D43, and on the NLSC, D43.
I am Andrew in the forum. You can find me on X at AndrewNLSC. The NLSC itself is on X and Facebook at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. On YouTube, we are at NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep it locked to the NLSC itself, NBA-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.